Right. Welcome back to our next session. Once again, another session I've been really looking forward to. If you tuned in yesterday to one of our sessions, we had Sally Howes, who's talking about some of the impact on government in terms of digital transformation. Today, we're quite privileged to have Yvonne Gallagher, who's going to talk to us about lessons from digital transformation in large government organizations. Yvonne is currently the Director of Digital for the National Audit Office and has vast experience in this space, particularly around business change, digital services, cyber, and information services as well. So, Yvonne, over to you.
Many thanks. So good morning, everyone. Sorry you can't see me today for some inexplicable reason, but luckily you can see my slides. Today, what I wanted to do, just briefly introduce you to my background. So my whole career has been in digital, and I've been a CIO in the private sector financial services, predominantly in the early stages of my career and always in large organizations. And then about 8 years ago, I moved into government. Not into government, into the NAO, looking at government. We are independent of government. And during that time, it's given me a great opportunity to look across at what government is doing to try and become more modern, become more digital, and actually transform. But a lot of the issues that we're seeing in government are really systemic in all large organizations. So today, that's why I'm going to talk to you about digital transformation. So this is and it's important here that digital transformation describes its businesses moving to a new way of working enabled by technology. So it really is about the business change. And unfortunately, in a way, when you look at the new greenfield organizations, they are created to be digital from the outset, as we know, Amazon, Netflix, etc. And the ambitions, both in the private sector and government, is to be more modern, be more digital, be more like those organizations. But anybody who already exists, any organizations that exist, the brownfields, face huge risks and challenges, and I want to talk about some of those today. So on the left, here is the traditional organizations and how they are currently set up. And then over on the right, we have digital organizations. So actually, they're completely different. And the challenge then in traditional organizations is not to create what's there on the right. Well, they'd like to create what's there on the right, but really they've got to work out how they get from the left-hand side to the right-hand side. And that is the challenge. And that challenge isn't very well understood because everybody associates technology with here's something fast, here's something easy, what's taking you so long. But basically, when you already have huge operations, as you do on the left, how do you do this in a piecemeal way, in a radical way, and move to the right? So business transformation, then, it's this step change improvement. And the issue is it's about people, processes, and the technology. So, but the key thing there then is not what technology is in place, but what else needs to be in place. And really major focus is on the senior leadership in large traditional organizations because they need the capacity, the capability, and the know-how to lead the change. But the important thing is they also need to understand the complexity of the established environment that already exists. So when they're defining the vision for how the organization is going to look in the future, they really need to understand what is there, but also what technology can do for them. And that is really the hard part. And in traditional organizations, everybody leading in roles that are leading their business areas in traditional organizations are very busy people. They have a full-time job running their existing businesses. So how they find the capacity and how are they expected to know how to transform is actually a big challenge. So if the business elements are missing, so you can see I'm really focused not on the technology, but this is about the business understanding what is involved here. So if the technology elements start before the business design, that creates a number of issues. And when I talk about the technology elements, it's mostly the let's do something innovative with the way that we want to interface with our customers. And you can start on that. You can design new customer interfaces, but focusing on those simpler things means that there's an inability of everybody to understand the full problem right up front and how the business is going to tackle this enormous move to that right-hand side that I showed you earlier. So the consequences of not doing it, as I've laid out here on the left-hand side, are any short-term technical initiatives adding to the existing legacy system base increases that what we call technical debt. So in other words, it costs 100 million a year to run this part of the business. And now we're going to put something on top of that. So it's going to take 100 million to run this business and run the inefficiencies that already exist, but we're going to create something new to sit on top of it. So now it's going to be 105 million a year to run. So it doesn't lead to increased efficiencies within the organization or increase or decrease in the costs. So lots of consequences there for not understanding the business elements properly. So what are the issues? So I've mentioned it now, legacy systems. So they are the ones, all these mature organizations continue to operate a legacy environment. And that's when the way they are doing business no longer meets that, the business change that's required. And newer technologies could be used if only there was the wherewithal to be able to apply them. And government has neglected many of its legacy systems, and so has large parts of the private sector, because it's a huge area, of cost. And quite often when businesses and organizations are looking at their funding year on year, it's not an area that they enjoy putting their money into. So, but the risks of legacy increase over time because the gap from what they have and where they want to be increases. So there's legacy systems have also many complex dependencies. So if you look at some large organizations, you can have one legacy system or service that has about 100 different interfaces. So if you're changing elements of that legacy system, you've got to change everything that it links to. The role of data, to some extent, or to a large extent, when we talk about systems, we are really talking about the data. The systems are merely a repository of the data. And the problem with legacy data is a lot of it is old. It's not consistent for the same customer in different areas of the business. And it has to be joined up manually. So there are huge issues. So again, anything that is built on top of the existing legacy and drags out existing legacy data is not doing what the business will want it to do. So if you think back to the examples of any greenfield sites that are Amazon, Netflix, any of those, they are using modern, up-to-date data. It's the data that their customers are using right at this time. They're not looking at, they would never, no new organization would say, well, let's design a new system and drag out some old data that's been there for 20 years and doesn't quite add up. So legacy data and how these organizations tackle it is really important. Security, I'm not going to major on this in particular, but this is a major issue with the legacy environment. So again, how do you build into anything new if you're trying to do digital transformation? This takes, when you're looking at the security aspects of your data, going forward, it just makes the design of anything more complex. So security, big issue in transformation. I think one of the biggest ones, though, now that's emerging is the people and skills issue. So I touched earlier on when you're doing business transformation or digital transformation, the senior leaders' understanding of digital, they don't need to understand the technology in depth, but they do need to understand how technology and any future models, how that will enable and drive the look of their business. So lots of large organizations are struggling with their senior people not really understanding sufficiently their existing organization and the skills and that they need to help them and to modernize. And of course, the other major issue is technical skills. And we know that now there's a global shortage. So this is really compounding the problem for all organizations. So we, in government in particular, that we drew this up. We recently did a piece of work, and here's 25 years of government strategies. We looked at these strategies. They're all really good. A lot of them make sense today. But the issue is the pace of change has been glacial because of the complexities involved. So rather than doing another strategy, it really needs for government and other large organizations really thinking about what are the barriers that are stopping them moving forward. And I think here's some of the barriers that we came across in our report that we just produced on the challenges of implementing digital change. And there's a myriad of them. The politics of the organization gets involved. The ambition can be unrealistic in terms of the starting point and where they want to get to. The lack of technical awareness right across the organization, the new leadership that's required. So huge changes and are needed to all of those areas to facilitate any kind of digital transformation. So finally, if you'd like to read our report that we set out last year, it's called The Challenges in Implementing Digital Change, and we focused on 6 areas. So we actually said a lot of the digital transformation, and we talked to a lot of private sector organizations when we did this work, they all highlighted the same kind of thing, which is right from the beginning, properly understanding the aims, ambitions, and risks of what they're undertaking, rather than they start, especially in the public sector, can start off something that's a bit overambitious. And that without really understanding what's going on, and all the issues emerge as that program progresses. Commercial partners really key in engaging them properly, and that's a kind of an old chestnut, but all of that thing applies. And then the approach that I've talked about quite a lot to the legacy systems and data, how is that going to be moved forward? And then we looked at the next 3 areas, which were really about using the right mix of capability and the choice of delivery method. A lot of talk about agile, waterfall, etc. Agile, we found in large organizations, can be an excuse to miss out a lot of the business change and go straight to let's develop the technology in an agile fashion. So mature organizations can use agile well, immature organizations not so well. And then, of course, with the funding mechanisms for digital transformation can be quite tricky. How much is in the scope of what needs funding and how strategic that whole picture needs to be to understand good funding decisions. So I'm going to leave it there. That's my 15 minutes up. And if you'd like to read the report, it's called The Challenges of Implementing Digital Change. Thank you all very much, and I shall pass you back.
Great, Yvonne, thank you very much. There's some really fascinating insights and trends developing around this over the last couple of days. There was two that stuck out for me from this particular session. One is around the legacy systems. I think some companies hugely underestimate the intransigence of the legacy systems in a company. And the other one was about leadership. And this came out in yesterday's session a little bit as well, about how leadership, in some cases, may not be tech savvy enough to actually implement digital transformation effectively, nor do they necessarily always understand the impact on the people involved as well. So Yvonne, thank you very much. Some really fascinating insights from that perspective. So I'll bring this session to a close, then I'll see you in a few minutes where we're going to have Dr. Paul Gosling from Thales to talk to us a little bit about digital transformation and research opportunities. So thank you very much.